Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 12th Canadian Science Policy Conference, CSPC 2020. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue à la 12e conférence sur la politique scientifique canadienne. As part of the interview series for CSPC 2020, we are pleased to have with us today Jean Lebel, President of International Development Research Center, or IDRC. Nous sommes heureux d'accueillir avec nous Monsieur Jean Lebel, le président du Centre de recherche pour le développement international, ou CRDI. Welcome to the CSPC 2020, Mr. Lebel.
Thank you, Mehrdad. Merci beaucoup. I like the way you pronounce my name because for French Canadian, I'm Jean Lebel. And for Anglo Canadian, I'm often Jean Lebel. And around Christmas time, it turns out that I'm Jingle Bell. So, I can live with any of those pronunciations.
So we can go with Jean Lebel as you wish. That's perfectly fine.
Pleasure, Mehrdad, to be with you this morning.
Excellent. This is also the second time that you are with us. We're pleased to have you with us and hope to continue this collaboration and having you at our conferences and other events in future. But the important thing is that the IDRC is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Congratulations. And what a really milestone. Many Canadians, including myself, take pride in the work that IDRC does on behalf of all Canadians in developing countries and for being involved, in building institutions in post-apartheid South Africa to help maternal and child health in conflict zones in Africa and helping rural areas in Pakistan, Southeast Asia, to support climate work in developing countries. These are all amazing work that IDRC does, and let me say thank you for that. And you have accomplished so much in 50 years. But let me ask you this question: that what challenges are you most focused for the coming years?
Well, Mehrdad, thank you for this very kind introduction to IDRC. We always have to remember that, after 50 years, there's a few mainstay that we have to recall. A, the mandate that created us 50 years ago is still true. Second, whatever has been the stripe of different government, as a Crown corporation, we have always been supported by Canadian Parliament and by the Canadian. Our mandate is outside of the country, but there's so much bridge with Canada that we will illustrate today that I wanted to thank all of you in the room here today for, supporting IDRC work. And, if we look at the global landscape over the conference, COVID, is a mainstay. It's all over. But COVID has revealed, something that is quite fundamental and that we knew, but that has put even more emphasis now. Climate change and inequalities are in the backdrop out there as slow-burning issues that we need to tackle more than ever. So if you look at the future of IDRC, of course, COVID is central, but it has to be put in perspective with climate change and inequalities that are reaching out other topics: health, education, agriculture, science. It's, these two elements are compounding everything. But the other aspect of it is that we need also to secure that this worldwide collaboration that has emerged for the development of treatment or vaccine is a mainstay that was presented a lot of work of IDRC over the year and needs to continue in the future. And that's opportunity for the developing region that have expertise. Over 50 years of capacity serves something after all, but also for Canadian bridges, because so many of our work and successes were embedded also in collaboration with Canadian. Think of the Ebola vaccine that Gary Cobinger, PIAC, has developed a few years ago for West Africa. We participated into this with CIHR, with Global Affairs. So there was a Canadian, interaction with the people in Guinea where the vaccine was tested.
Wonderful. You mentioned COVID. Let me just ask you a question. I know that IDRC offers a unique perspective with regards to COVID-19. Can you tell us about your work in this respect in the developing world? What are the challenges that developing countries facing and how similar or different they are to us in Canada, and what Canada can do to help?
Well, COVID is a pandemic. It affects everyone around the world. And whether you are in Quebec or in Ottawa or in Vancouver, we are facing a lot of similarity. We're facing also differences that are anchored in the local reality. And I think that's something that is important to us, is that those debates that are developed, in advanced economies cannot be limited to advanced economies. So we need to enhance the participation of these research community elsewhere that have a say and have also expertise. I'll give you 3 examples. In March, very rapidly, we pivot our programming, through concrete step to help with the situation related to COVID. With CIHR and other stakeholders in Canada, we create pool funding for rapid research fund in order to look at treatment and look at vaccine development, but securing that we have participation from Global South, participant. This is rolling. Second illustration, numbers of countries, whether in sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, or Latin America, have invested huge amount of money in recovery package. Like here, but the challenge for those economies is that they might be not as resilient as ours. So we launched a program with think tank to think about the recovery and rebuilding after this pandemic now, not wait after, but prepare. So those think tanks are responding either to national authority or providing independent advice to them in order to secure that from a social and economic standpoint, as well as the environmental sustainability, solutions are implementable and are driven also by the capacity that are on site in those various regions. And lastly, research is a global endeavor, but sometimes you need to have, locally rooted solution. And we have partnered with the National Research Foundation of South Africa and with the Science Granting Council Initiative, that is a program with 16 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, to give them funding for them to implement research that is urgently needed. And these projects are going from, technology development for face shield towards, having a better aggregation of data to count the death. Because, if you're not counting, how can you know what you are measuring? So these are 3 examples that within 4 weeks were rolled out in April of this year. And they have embedded Canadian participation in some instances. They have embedded developing country participation. They are providing the support where it's needed in times where we know public health capacity are pulled in our country and elsewhere in many different directions. And we need to pay attention to it in development, because if we don't pay it now, it will come back to us. Because it's not true that if we are able to curve, the curves in Canada, that they will not come back if we don't curve the curves also in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, or elsewhere in the world.
Do you think Canada can be the lead in supporting science in developing countries?
Well, through IDRC, I think that our motto has always been, working with researchers in developing countries and bringing their issues at the forefront and having them to be empowered to speak on behalf of the result that they are generated. That was 50 years ago. It was groundbreaking. That was Canadian leadership. And today, many organizations are eager to do exactly the same thing, work at the local level in order to find global solution. So the leadership of Canada through IDRC has always been present and is even more enhanced now. But I think Canada is playing a crucial role with the value the country has and also the openness it has in supporting others. I give you the example of CIHR. Also, more recently, Stephen Hoffman, that is York University and works at CIHR, and us collaborated at the request of the Deputy Secretary General of the UN for a roadmap towards recovery. And this is Canadian leadership with numbers of stakeholders from around the world that is pushing for an improvement on something that is urgently needed. Access to the vaccine. We know that we need to have global access and distribution. Canada has brought its voice very strongly on this issue, and we need to pursue this. So, global collaboration has emerged for vaccine development. Let's hope and be bold that these global collaboration extend to other fields over the years and gives, a branding to Canada that is already in the making. That's to me quite important.
Okay. Now let's switch gears towards Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, that United Nations identified those objectives to be delivered by 2030. From IDRC's perspective, how do you think IDRC is contributing to these goals? And do you think the science policy community, which is our community in Canada, can support in achieving SDGs goal?
Well, the SDGs is an ambitious agenda. And, in the preamble of the SDGs document that were presented to the UN in 2015, it says this is for a more sustainable and inclusive world. So there are 17, they are covering broad area. We won't disclose all of them. But I'll come back to my earlier point. With COVID, we are at risk of going back. And if we are going back, there's also high risk that slow burning issues like inequalities and climate change will continue. And with this continuation, the risk is going to be even greater not to achieve the SDGs. So the SDGs are part of a global roadmap that all countries have ratified. Our contribution over the next year will be to make sure that while we are in COVID pandemic times, that we keep an eye on these slow burning issues of climate change and inequalities, and that we integrate this beyond the disciplinary, but taking it globally, corporately, with all our programming forward. That will be a contribution, I think, that will make a difference and that will help the world, and particularly researchers that are in Africa, that are in Latin America and Asia and the Middle East, that are facing this crude reality on a daily basis. How do we improve in many different places to secure that these two global threats are under control and potentially resolved? But that's a long journey, and this is where research is needed. So, constant investment, constant reinforcement of capacity, but results that speak from the people of developing region to the decision maker in those regions are far more, in my view, having a potential for success than if it's a solution that is brought from outside.
Very good. And to my last question, the CSPC is, first of all, is very grateful for the partnership with the IDRC, especially as we move into a new decade of our operations and the new decade of 2020 with many challenges ahead of us. I want to ask you what you think about the role and the value that CSPC presents as a national hub for science and innovation policy, which includes, by the way, science diplomacy. And what do you think about that, and how do you see that value?
Well, over the years, it's your 12th conference. I think that you have become un incontournable, like we say in French. This is probably the biggest gathering, of policy actor, researcher, private sector, influencer, debater. So for us, it's natural to partner with you. I think you have demonstrated in spade that there is a ground for bringing science at the forefront and bring the policy actor to think about, and other members of society. I think that your conference is cutting across so many different dimensions of what I was referring for IDRC, climate change and inequalities. You can speak of COVID, you can speak of policy, you can speak of health, but if you don't bring these two elements constantly in the back of your mind, I think you're missing an opportunity to make a global improvement. And, I think that science knows no border. Here in Canada, we are making gigantic step forwards in terms of collaboration we need to maintain this. We need to extend it. It might be more complicated, but the complexity of the issues that we are facing asks for this global collaboration and asks for us to simplify also our message. It's not because it's complicated that it is not effective. And good example of success in the coming years where we have global impact will be quite important. And we did it in the past. We did it on the health side. We did it on the agriculture side. Now we need it in terms of showing the world that our approaches will make a difference in terms of having more people that live in sustainable and economically viable environment. And what a better opportunity to let you know that, on Wednesday at 8:30, we have a panel with youth and with Environment and Climate Change Canada that will talk about the idea of climate change, the action, the challenges, and the success. So it's Wednesday, November 18 at 8:30, and we're convening all the audience to participate in this very interesting conversation with youth on climate change.
Thank you. You made my job easier because I was about to say that the IDRC, we are pleased to see IDRC has two panels, one on Wednesday morning and on climate change. And so I highly encourage participants to make sure you capture that interesting session with participants and panelists from across the globe. And don't miss that. Merci énormément, Monsieur Jean Lebel, pour être avec nous aujourd'hui. And thank you for being with us, and bonne conférence.
Merci, Mehrdad. Thank you. Highly Mahmoud.
Thank you very much, Jean, for your excellent pronunciation of Farsi words for thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day.